Gottlieb. I'm a director analyst in the Gartner for Sales practice. Today I am the MC on the pipeline track. And when you partner with Gartner for Sales, you'll read a lot about pipeline, and that a lot of that'll come from our team. So I'm excited for that new chapter. Really quickly, everybody, drop your comments and questions in the chat. And I just invited you. What's your big, hairy data challenge you have now? Drop it in the chat. I'll be active in the chat, and then we're going to use the chat to surface some questions to Alex at the end. If you haven't heard by now, Topo is now Gartner. We're incredibly excited. The line is, united, we are equipping sales and marketing executives at the world's leading companies to achieve repeatable, scalable growth. From my perspective as an analyst, I have a whole new team that I get to collaborate with of wildly smart people with different points of view and perspectives, and an enormous data set and different ways of acquiring data to conduct research. So as a student of the game, I'm incredibly excited for this next chapter, and I hope it shows up in the work that we do over the next couple of years. So you got my word on that. Okay, so check out us, check out Topo is now Gartner. Thank you to our sponsors. Big thank you to our sponsors for being here today, for making this event possible. We tremendously appreciate them. Now, there is a very cool booth session where you can go drop in and just have a casual conversation with a couple folks from the company. It's not like the booth where you're going to have an SDR just like sort of sitting there waiting, like bating breath to scan you. But what they are going to do is they're there to answer some questions and tell you some stories. I had a really cool conversation at 3 different booths yesterday with a couple different folks from these companies. So go learn, go hang out, go network, go meet people, have a good time with this. Let's do something a little bit differently today. But more specifically, special thanks to this session sponsor, Dun Bradstreet. Dun Bradstreet, tremendous data partner. And we are incredibly appreciative of them sponsoring today. And in preparation for the session today, instead of saying, why don't we do a deep dive demo of Dun Bradstreet, they actually decided, why don't we send one of our account-based experts here to talk with you and share our perspective on how we help our customers take big account-based challenges and introduce them every single day. And go, what can we go and do in the next 90 days? Because we don't have time. We don't have the time. So speaking of not having the time, I've already taken up 5 of Alex's precious minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Alex Southworth. Alex is the VP of Account-Based Marketing at Dun Bradstreet. He's got a career background in solving problems with data as a consultant, as a marketer, as a head of business development. But anytime you see someone with a chemical engineering background in sales and marketing, you're going to see something special. You're going to see something exciting. And that's what we kind of get with Alex here today. So Alex is going to open up his labs and he's going to share 5 different things you can do, probably all with data, to build pipeline in the next 90 days. So Alex, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. Very generous introduction. Appreciate that. So, hi everyone. Well, thank you all for making time to visit me. I know I'm competing with the new president who's just being inaugurated. So appreciate you focusing on this rather than that. So hopefully I can make your time worthwhile. So what I wanted to do today was I wanted to share with you really just 5 strategies that we run for our clients that come straight out of our kind of ABM playbook. And hopefully that will give you a few things to think about as you're thinking about how you build out your ABM strategies over the next 90 days and also year as well. So, just quickly, a few numbers. Sorry, just getting used to the presentation. So, we run a lot of surveys with marketers who are doing ABM and various other things. And it's not going to be a surprise to you, but we see a huge uptick in marketers that are doing ABM. There's probably from 2019 to 2020, there's been a 60% uptick in marketers that are using account-based approaches for marketing. I know Topo do a lot of research on this in terms of the effectiveness of account-based marketing. It's basically a very hot topic that I think there's a lot of upside in terms of how people are changing how they're going to market and how they're executing marketing. The key thing that we work with our clients on and talk to them about is that ABM isn't just one-stop shop where you basically implement a solution and it's working perfectly. It's actually a journey. We talk about having a roadmap for ABM with our clients and how to move from the initial steps of just initially getting it going and bringing the data together to ultimately improving the sophistication with which you do marketing. But ultimately, starting complex isn't the way forward. So we have a strategy around how we do that. What I wanted to do today was, as I mentioned before, take you through 5 different strategies that we advocate with our clients around how they can implement ABM and ultimately be successful. The key word that I'm going to talk about as I go through this is focus. Being very focused in terms of what you're doing is absolutely critical to ABM success. So hopefully as I go through this, it will give you a few ideas, but also give you items where you can focus on the specific outcomes that you're looking for. So the first element of the ABM playbook that we run with our clients is really being specific on the objectives that you're trying to run. What we often see with our clients is they'll give us a list of target accounts and say, we want to target these accounts. The response to that is often, okay, so what do you want to do with those accounts? And as we dig deeper, what we find is that there's actually a number of different strategies associated with each of those accounts. Typically, it's some combination of driving awareness and engagement with clients, building out pipeline for sales, closing opportunities, or even post-sales motions such as renewals and cross-sells and upsells. As we think about our strategies and how we basically encourage companies to go through their ABM journey, what we always advocate is focus on the plays that you want to be successful first. Start with that and then slowly scale to other plays. So generally, what we often start with is the awareness and prospecting play. And then as we get good at that, what we'll start doing is we'll start moving into other specific areas. So my first key strategy is really focus on the plays that you want to drive and the objectives that you want to drive through ABM, and then slowly start scaling through other ones. So depending on where you are in the journey, you can figure out what the next play that is best for you is. The second one is really an iteration of that. So the other thing that we also see with clients, especially with our ABM platform, is it's very easy to go omni-channel straight away. The challenge with going omni-channel straight away and executing your ABM strategies across display, across social search, across your SDRs, across your sales team, is that it introduces complexity into your marketing plans. And we all know that complexity is the enemy of execution and results. So the other thing that's actually really important is as you're thinking about your ABM strategy is focusing on what are the right tactics that are really going to move the needle for you. Now, there's different ways of thinking about it for each of the different clients, and there's different starting points that you'll probably be starting from. But as you start thinking about scaling your ABM campaigns and your ABM program, there's probably one next strategy or one next tactic or one next marketing channel that you can start opening up for a specific play or objectives that you're doing, be it social media, enabling SDRs, driving emails. The key thing that we advocate here is really focus on where the value is going to be, and the value comes from 2 different directions. The first one is you want to be basically targeting your customers in the same way that they buy. Okay, so if a client prefers to buy using Facebook and that's specific to your buying journey, then that's the channel that you should maybe focus on driving ABM. The other side to it is also focusing a lot on the channels that actually cost money. Because one of the key things with ABM is it's also an opportunity to drive greater ROI. But if it's a free channel that you're targeting, such as email. If you don't have offers associated with it, there's very little benefit in terms of driving an ABM strategy there. So focus on your specific channels that you want to drive through, and prioritize them to what's relevant for you. The next strategy is really around focusing on which accounts you want to prioritize, and this is the big kind of D&B data play that we advocate with our clients. So we were talking a bit about this earlier on with Dan. One of the key challenges that clients have is often that they give us a target list of accounts, and actually what you need to do at the very first stage is figure out which accounts fit into which specific strategies and plays. Then once you've done that, maybe you've taken a list of maybe 50,000 accounts, you've boiled it down to 10,000 accounts. The next thing there is to figure out, okay, so which ones are the ones that are most likely to buy? Where should we focus our dollars? And there's two primary strategies that we use, and some clients even use 3 strategies to prioritize their accounts. The first one is around account fit. So what's the propensity of the client to purchase? In modeling terms, it's how close does the target account look like your existing customers? Okay, what's that lookalike model look like? The second one is behavior. Where are they in the buying cycle? Are they exhibiting buying signals that indicate that they are looking to engage with you? So prioritizing around that, and that involves aggregating and integrating a lot of data from a lot of different sources, not just third-party intent. It's also people that are visiting your website, that are responding to emails and coming to events and coming to your booth. And then the final one that we also see a lot of clients using, especially at D&B, is risk as well. Obviously, if there's a lot of risk associated with a client, chances are they're not going to pay. So in order to drive profitability of your customer relationships, that's another good criteria around how you can prioritize your accounts. So the fourth strategy that we've got here is actually something that has become a lot more talked about recently, which is this concept of moving beyond just providing leads in a traditional demand generation approach to your sales team and moving towards informing them with buying signals. So there's a lot of research that's been done around this, and actually a lot of research that's been done about this by Gartner as well, around how in the B2B buying cycle, and this isn't going to be new to any of you, generally decision making is done by committees. Typically, I think this is actually based on Gartner research, 6 to 10 people are in that buying committee. The other side of it is also, again, and this has been a trend that's been happening for the last 5-10 years, increasingly buyers are doing a lot more research online, and every time they do research online, they're exhibiting buying signals. They're consuming content, they're filling out forms, they're attending webinars, they're even visiting your website or visiting other people's websites as well to generate intent signals. So it's important, that's another dynamic. And then the other thing is that the B2B buying journey isn't linear. And the challenge that we see with leads is that the concept almost forgets about all of those different new trends. And so what we're seeing, especially with companies that focus on selling higher end products to large enterprises, is they're building out a process by which they share buying signals with their salespeople. So this is indicating whether a potential target account has visited your website, whether they've downloaded a white paper, and that gives salespeople a lot more context around how the company is buying, where they are in the buying cycle, how engaged they are, but also who the buying committee is as well. So it could be that you think that you need to, for example, if you're targeting a networking, if you're targeting a CISO, for example, they may be the key decision maker that you're targeting, but they may have a team of people that are doing research and maybe even a broader team of people that are the approval committee as well. So understanding that is really key. And what we're seeing is there's a key trend that people are moving away from just selling or moving leads the sales team, but also sharing with them buying signals as well, and doing it either through a platform or just even doing it through email as well. Going to the next slide, so final strategy here. So having spent a lot of time in marketing and building business cases for developing marketing strategies, I would be remiss as to say that if you did not, if you were implementing new strategies and not measuring the impact, chances are it's going to get defunded at the end of the budget period. So absolutely critical as you're building out your ABM program is to ensure that you're measuring on an ongoing basis. What we found, especially over the last year, is that there are often a lot of external factors that impact your ability to measure the true relative impact of introducing a new strategy. So what we do again with all of our clients is we work with them to build out control groups so that we can really do A/B testing to ensure that we can measure the true impact of any new ABM strategies or tactics that we're working with them on. So that's my final strategy. So going on to the next slide, this is a couple of examples of accounts and customers that we've worked with that have been at different stages in the overall, in their ABM journey. The account on the left, we started working with them, focusing very much on the top of the funnel and helping them harvest the data around the top of the funnel to see who was engaging, but also execute tactics around display and ultimately engagement with prospects. The second company on the right was a bit further down in their ABM journey and looking to basically expand their tactics from just display to email and a few other and social media as well. And again, as we started working with them, what we managed to do with them through implementing and going through the playbook that we have was ultimately increasing their click-through rates from their display, increasing their email open rates and engagement in general. And ultimately, and this is ultimately the true metric for ABM that you need to be getting towards, is generating pipeline. We managed to double the amount of pipeline that was generated with this client over a period of 1 year. So final slide, this is just kind of like the key takeaways. So, 5 strategies that you can focus on in the next 90 days. First one is plays. Make sure that you are very specific on your objectives that you're looking to drive with ABM. Second one is be focused on your channels, on the marketing channels that you're looking to execute through. Don't go complex too early. Third thing, focus on the accounts. So build up a data strategy and a modeling strategy that allows you to prioritize the accounts that you want to target and focus on. Third thing is focus on giving insights to your sales teams. So you may be focusing just on leads at the moment. Think about buyer insights and additional information that you can be providing through to your sales team. And then the final thing, don't forget to measure the value that you're adding and the impact that you're generating to the overall organization. So that was a quick, hopefully 20 minutes of kind of my thoughts and really just extracts from the D&B playbook of how we help clients build out their ABM strategy. So over to you, Dan.
Well, this is usually the part where everyone's in person and clapping for you and saying, thank you, right? So first of all, we've got some great questions rolling in here. And I think we'll start with the first one. And so an individual asked, hey, I'm wondering if there's any strategies or approaches you can recommend for that research phase. Many a time, I'm not really sure where to start. And so it'd be interesting to see any successful methodologies there. So I guess, where do I start? Where do I start?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the question is around how you better measure companies that are doing research in your specific area. So traditionally, what we see is there's 2 main tactics that you can use to harvesting that data. The first one is intent data. There are a lot of intent providers out there that monitor various third-party websites so they can identify which accounts are actually doing research on those specific topics that you're interested in. And then the other piece is also analyzing your website. So using de-anonymization technology, website de-anonymization technology, to uncover which accounts are visiting your website and what content they are researching is the key thing. And generally, with regards to the third-party intent data, you have a few different options around different intent providers. What we say is two things, really. The first one is intent is actually an and game. No intent provider is perfect. The more intent signals that you have that you can combine together, the better. The second thing is when you start thinking about intent, there's a few different approaches to doing it. What we do at D&B is we have a topic-based intent approach as well as a custom-based intent where we do natural language processing to analyze websites and understand what the specific topics are and the nuances of the topics are. And what we also do is we distinguish between visitors to those web pages that are doing just research, whether they're actually exhibiting buying behavior as well. That gives you another dimension in terms of where they sit within that overall buying journey.
That's great. That's great feedback. Start with the lowest hanging fruit is what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just make sure you talk to the people that are showing some interest and wanting to learn who you are. Okay, let's move on. The questions are rolling in. So you are doing a good job of competing with Joe Biden. All right. Number one, so what's your view on the type and the nature of the content you should use through ABM? And I have a feeling you're probably going to say, well, it depends on the play, right?
It does. It does. And it depends on the tactics that you're using as well. But actually, I think I've got a hypothesis that content is going to be the next frontier of account-based marketing. Actually, I know content marketing was a real challenge a few years ago and people placed a lot of focus on it. And it was a real hot topic. I think the next phase of ABM is going to be around content and being able to produce content not just to generate leads, but to generate buying signals is going to be the emphasis of it. So, what's the best content? As you said, Dan, it depends on the play that you're running and the channels that you're using. But the key thing that I'll say is that as you're developing your content, in the back of your mind, it's not just about engaging the customer and the account, but it's also about collecting data around who is exhibiting buying behavior and who is interested in buying. And then ultimately, as I was saying earlier on, passing that through to your sales org to give them insights into where a customer is potentially on the buying cycle.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I think about this all the time from the sales development standpoint, and we're thinking more on a one to few point of view around the conversion opportunities, and a lot of it is taking the signals and deciding what is the right content and the right message for that individual, and making that process manual. And I believe that I agree with you that content's the next frontier. I believe automation between platforms like Dun Bradstreet and platforms like sales engagement software is going to be crucial in instrumenting that, so that humans are spending less time trying to do the forensic comparison of, oh, this signal means that. And machines do some of that associating for us, but the machines are just saying, hey, Dan, hey, Alex, here's a message that we think would resonate. Here are the content we think resonates, but it's up to you to package it all up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another way that I think about it is at the moment, ABM focuses a lot on who you should target and when you should target and how you should target them in terms of the channels, right. And what that next step is. But really, you also need, to your point, you also need to be focusing on what you say to that specific, what's the next message, and that one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many content pyramid that a lot of people associate with ABM, integrating that into the what, when, and how is going to be absolutely critical. No one's cracked it, but that's another area to focus on for sure.
Well, and I think the big takeaway for me as an analyst and seeing different companies do this is that you can't crack it universally. The only way to crack, this is really where principles of design thinking become very helpful in sort of making guesses on where we should bet. Anyways, okay, we got some really good questions. We should see if we can turn up into rapid fire and see if how many we can get through here and making sure that we're effective. So can you provide an example of selecting a channel to kick off an ABM tactic? I feel like we kind of talked about that.
Display is the default ABM tactic that people usually introduce. So account-based display advertising.
Amazing. Okay, this one's going to be hard to plow through, but I think we can do it. What are the key items you discuss with customers to help them move away from lead-based marketing to looking at account engagement? How do you help them evolve and understand the metrics?
So yeah, there's a lot here to unpack. So I would say the key thing here is actually working with sales. So one of the key principles of account-based marketing is sales and marketing alignment. To drive this approach, you really need buy-in from the sales organization. So working with sales, getting sales buy-in, building out the processes and the systems to share the data, and then ultimately working with them on the metrics that they find important to define what success looks like. So that was my quick fire answer to a good question.
From my perspective, the biggest changes in metrics are, from the lead to the engaged account. And then the waterfall down of engaged account to opportunities at account to meetings at accounts. That is probably one of the bigger transitions strategically.
It's a good point. I mean, it also depends on the plays that you're looking to drive and where the customer is in the buying cycle, and also the nuance of the products that you're selling in your existing engagement model. So it varies with a lot of clients. That's why I advocate at the beginning getting alignment with sales on how they want to sell. Makes
sense. Okay, typical conversion rate from target account to opportunity.
I'm gonna sit on the fence on that one.
safe answer. Hey, whoever asked that question, go Google Topo account-based benchmark report. The answers are there. I'm sorry for giving you homework to do it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I know we have it. And we know it varies by list size. It varies by list size because of how much money and effort we put into an account. Okay. When aligning the internal channels of sales and marketing, who's the overseer? Sales or marketing leadership?
So this is another really good question. And recently we've seen a huge rise in the number of chief revenue officers where people are trying to bring together sales and marketing units into a single organization to try and drive that. Personally, I like marketing to drive that. I think marketing tend to think more about the buying journey and the personas and are maybe in a better position to drive that. That said, I think a lot of customers that we work with and a lot of companies are very sales-centric, in which case, if you're a sales-centric company and that's where the center of power is of the company, that's where you need to focus your efforts.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we ran out of time for questions, but just a closing comment on this, from our work at Topo, we definitely see that, the lead orchestrator is certainly usually somebody in a head of account-based type of role, but they are working very closely on the change management, communications point and the enablement point of view with a key stakeholder, usually a head of X a head of a region, a head of a segment, head of ops, in order to implement and measure and make the reporting obvious for everybody to say, here's how it's going. That's what we see when it works. Well, Alex, this was fun. I feel like we could sit here and talk for another hour at least and answer questions from the group.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. So I just want to say thank you. And this is the part where everyone would join me in giving you a round of applause. We really appreciate your expert and